With St. Patrick's Day right around the corner, I thought I'd make a green lasagna. So I was looking on the internet and I've never actually saw any true fully green lasagnas. So here's my take on it. To make a fully green lasagna, the pasta's going to be green, the filling's going to be green, and the bechamel sauce is also going to be green. The only thing that's not going to be green is the mozzarella and the cheese on top that's going to get a nice golden colour. To start off this green lasagna, we need to make some parsley oil. Simple enough. You just want to get a whole bunch of parsley and you want to pour boiling hot water all over the whole lot and you want to leave it in there until it changes to a brighter colour. This process doesn't take long. You can also put it on the stove in boiling water, but I found it easy just to boil the kettle and just pour it straight over it into a bowl. I'm not sure if the camera's actually picked it up with the colour, but it has changed to a more brighter colour. So as soon as that happens, you want to get it out into an ice bath and let it cool down. Once your parsley's cooled down, obviously it doesn't take too long because it's in ice water. You want to get it out onto a nice clean towel. To get the parsley as dry as possible, you just put it in your towel, you dab it off as much as you can, then you gather it up into a little bowl like this, and then you just squeeze it and all that water should come out. The more water you get out, the better. Once you've got as much out as you can with the towel, you just want to spread it out between two paper towels, just like that, and give it a good push. Press down it as much as you can. As I said, the more water we get out, the better. I've just roughly chopped up the dry parsley, and I've put it in my container here, and I'm going to add about 100 mils of olive oil to this. I'm just going to just cover it. Then we'll stick the immersion blender in, and we'll get it all blended up. Once you've got it blended up a little bit, we're going to pop in the eggs, and we're going to blend this. Now you don't want to blend the eggs not too long. Once you got all that blended up, we'll set this aside for a minute and we'll get the flour ready. I've got some flour tipped out on my work surface here. Just going to add a little bit of salt to it. Get that all mixed in. And as we mix it in, we're just going to create a little well with the flour. To the well, we're going to add the parsley egg mixture. And if your well's not big enough, you just got to build the sides up a little more. And it's decided to leak out everywhere. So we're going to get the mixing. There's no big drama. We'll just get that started mixed in. Once it's nearly there, we'll add the rest of it. So we'll keep mixing this together with the fork. And once you can't mix it with the fork anymore, we'll clean it off. I'm going to grab our handy dandy bench scraper here. So we're going to keep bringing this together. And if you need to add more flour, just go ahead and have a little bowl there handy, like I have. And we'll keep kneading it until it all comes together into a nice little bowl. Once you've got your dough nice and smooth and springs back to the touch, you want to plop it on a plate with a bowl or something over the top. And we're going to let that rest for about an hour. Basil's going to get the exact same treatment. Boiling hot water straight over the top. And leave it in there for 34 seconds or until it changes to a brighter colour. Now as always, correct amounts and ingredients are going to be listed on the website traditionalbutnot.com. Once it's changed to that brighter colour, straight over into the ice bath. Now I didn't actually change the water of this ice bath between the parsley and that. It won't make any difference. It's just there to cool it down. Once it's cooled down, same towel as the parsley. Won't make too much of a difference. Straight on there. We'll spread it out a little bit so it drains off the best. Okay, then we just simple enough sop up as much water as you can. We'll gather it up in the center. Bring in all the corners. Same as the parsley. Squeeze as much water as we can out of it. The reason why we pour the hot water over it is so when we make the oil, it'll keep that nice green color, which is exactly what we need to make a green lasagna, funny enough. Okay, once you've wrung as much as you can out with a tea towel, we'll get it on the paper towel. We'll spread this out. We'll get another piece on top and sop up as much as we can. The reason why I put it in the towel first is so I can really give it a good squeeze. If I did that in the paper towel just disintegrates and rips apart. With my little food processor here, I'm just going to give it a little helping hand by roughly chopping up this. Yeah, you don't have to get too carried away with it. It's just to help out the blender here. We're going to bung it all in. We'll set the board and knife aside. Now we're going to add some olive oil. So we're going to add a good amount. We're going to bung the lid on and we're going to blitz it up. So ideally, you want this as blended down as possible. So if you have a really good blender, you could also use that. But my blender's not so great. I think this is the best machine for me to use. But if you have a really good blender, by all means, use that. Once you've got it blended down, you want to get yourself a sieve. And I've just got some coffee filters here that actually 2 coffee filters that are kind of ripped up and made fit in there better. So now we just need to pour this in here. Obviously the sieve is sitting over a bowl underneath to catch all the oil. Once you've got it all in there, we're going to set this aside. As you can see, I got a little impatient and I took out the coffee filters and just put it through the sieve. If you are impatient like me and you do that, just make sure you strain this twice. So I've got another little strainer here and we're just going to pour that through this strainer. This is the oil that I've pushed through the sieve, so it is still a little bit chunky. So we're just going to strain it twice. If you do have the time though, the best thing to do would be to make this oil and just let it sit out overnight so it goes through and it'll be, chunk free. But I got a little impatient. Make sure you keep a hold of this pulp because we will be using that later on. And once you've got the oil and the pulp separated, we're going to set this aside and go on with our next step. While the dough rests, we'll get the filling ready. So I'm just going to add a little bit of oil to a pot. I'm going to add in some onion. So we're just going to cook this off for a little bit here until it gets nice and soft, and then we'll come back. Once your onion's all nice and soft, I'll go ahead, add in a couple of cloves of roughly chopped garlic. Now we're just going to cook this out here for about 30 seconds to a minute. You get that nice fragrant garlic smell, and then we'll come back to the next step. At this point, we're going to add nice few shakes of salt. Then we're going to start putting handfuls of spinach in there. So this spinach is going to wilt down quite a lot. So we're just going to add a couple of big handfuls in. We'll get this all stirred in, and once it wilts down and reduces down, then we'll add the next few handfuls. All right, after a few seconds, it's already gone down. Add the next handful in. I'm going to keep doing that until we've added all the spinach. Once all the spinach has been added and it's wilted down like that, and most of the water's evaporated, we're going to take it off the heat and go on to the next step. As the sun still continues to chase me around my own kitchen, we're going to get this spinach blended up. We're going to add some ricotta into it. Once we've got the ricotta added, we'll bung the lid on and we'll get to mixing. Once you've mixed it a little bit, take the lid off, scrape the sides down, and mix again. At this point, we'll give it a taste for seasoning. Definitely need some. We'll also crack in some black pepper. We'll get that mixed in, and then we'll check it again to see if it needs anything else. Once you've got it all blended up and your seasoning's where you want it, we'll set it aside and get cracking on with the pasta. Now we're going to roll out the pasta. So I've got a pasta roller attached to my stand mixer here. So simple enough, we're just going to cut the dough ball into quarters, put them on the plate, keep them covered, and we'll set these aside and we'll just work on this piece here. I've got some extra flour here that we're just going to keep on hand, and we're just going to give this a bit of flour on the outside to make sure it doesn't stick to my pasta roller, and we're just going to flatten it out into a nice, just flatten it out into a bit of a shape. Now on my pasta roller, number 1 is the biggest setting, so we're going to feed it through on number 1 first. We'll feed it through a couple of times. I have to speed it up a little bit. Once you've fed it through a couple of times, we're just going to fold it over on itself till we get a nice little piece there. We'll try and make it as rectangle as possible, so when we go to roll it out again, it makes it nice. Make sure one end's a little bit flatter. I'll give it a bit of flour so it doesn't stick. And now we're going to start feeding it through again, starting with the biggest setting, slowly working our way through the numbers. We're just going to go through a couple of times. Once you've fed it through a couple of times, we'll go up a number. We'll start feeding it through, just changing, going up a number every time. At this point, I'm actually going to cut it in half, just so it's a little bit more manageable while I continue to feed it through the stand mixer here. I found for lasagna, on my machine, number 7 is the final thickness that I run it through at. I'll just even it up here. This is the pan that I'm going to be using to build the lasagna in. So I'm just going to take a measurement of how big the pan is, and then I'm going to cut my sheets to that size. Just like that. So now I'm going to go through, get all the rest of the pasta rolled out, and then we'll start to build it. Just before we make the bechamel sauce, we're going to make a quick compound butter that we're going to use. So we've got the basil pulp from the oil we made before. And we're going to add that to the butter. It's already in there. And we're going to quickly blitz this up. Now we'll quickly whiz this up until it's all incorporated. That looks about good. Now we'll head to the stove and make a bechamel sauce. To make the bechamel sauce, very simple. We're just going to add the butter that we just made to a pot. We're also going to add equal parts butter with basil oil. We'll just get that all melted down, and then we'll add the flour. It didn't take long. All right, now we're just going to add the flour. Now we'll keep this over a medium-low heat. We just want to stir this flour in and then cook out any raw flour taste. So we're just going to keep it over a medium-low, cook it for about a minute and a half there. We're going to start gradually adding in milk. Now just a little bit at a time, add it in. Give it a stir. Now you don't want to add a whole bunch in at a time because you won't get all the lumps out. So we'll just add a little bit, stir it in till it's all soaked up. Then we'll add a little bit more and stir that in. And we'll keep going like that until we've added all the milk. All right, once you've added all your milk, you want it a little on the thinner side as what you think, because now we're going to go ahead and add in the cheese. So we'll just go ahead and add also a little bit at a time. We'll mix that in until it's all melted, and then we'll add the rest. I'll go ahead and add the rest of the cheese in. We'll whisk this in, get it all melted, and then we'll taste for seasoning. Now I haven't tasted yet, but I know from just making this before that I haven't added any salt yet. So I'm gonna go ahead and put some in. And that looks like about what I'd use. So I'll get that mixed in. Then we'll give it a taste and adjust as needed. I need to add a little bit more salt. I'm gonna add a little bit of pepper, not too much, about that much. We'll get that mixed in and we'll adjust as needed. Once you've tasted your bechamel for seasoning, if you want to add any more cheese, go ahead and just melt it and mix it in. But once it's ready and it's a nice consistency, we'll take it off the heat and we're ready to build the lasagna. To build this lasagna, I'm gonna go in with a little layer of the spinach mixture first. So we'll get this all spread out. Now I'm gonna go down with the pasta sheets. Once you got the pasta sheet down, I'm gonna go ahead, put a bit more of the spinach mixture on. Now you don't want these layers too thick because all the filling is kind of creamy. You want a lot of pasta in there. So you just want to make them nice and thin and you want a lot of pasta in between. Also, you want to drizzle a little bit of the bechamel sauce in between each layer. Once you got that layer, you're just going to go ahead, put down more pasta and you're going to go ahead and build each layer up exactly the same. I'm going to go ahead and fill this up and then we'll come back. As you can see, I got it all filled up. I just finished it off with the only non-green component, which is some mozzarella and a bit more grana padano over the top. So I just grated up. Now, we want to cover it with some foil, but we don't want to make it too flat. We actually want to tent it a little bit. What we can do is we get a few toothpicks and we just stick them around the place. Now we want to gently put the alfoil on. Now we want to tent this because if we put it down flat, then the cheese is going to get all stuck to the alfoil. So you want to avoid it touching it as much as possible. Because there's a 98% chance that this thing is going to overflow, I've just lined my baking tray here with some foil. I'm going to set that right in there. We're going to stick this into a 200-degree preheated oven for about 40 to 45 minutes. Then we'll come back, we'll remove this foil, and then we'll get it nice and golden on top for the last 15-20 minutes worth of cooking. Once your lasagna looks all nice and golden and crispy on top, it's ready. Now, you want to let this sit for at least 20 to 30 minutes so it sets up, because if you try and eat it now, you're going to burn the absolute bejeebers out of your mouth. And also, if you let it sit for a little bit, you'll get that perfect cross section. So, we'll be back in about 20 minutes. I'm not going to lie, this was a little harder than I thought it was going to be when I first set out. But hopefully it's worth it. So creamy, so cheesy. I never understand why people pre-blanch their pasta sheets before they put them in there. You cook it for 40 minutes in there, there's enough juices and stuff within the filling to cook them through thoroughly. I think it's a step that most people don't need to take. But as for this, I'll be pooping green tomorrow.